Hi, I wanted to go back to the cap on the number of people that would be allowed for social interactions and family gatherings and in F&B outlets as well in phase two. I was just wondering, can the task force elaborate on how it arrived at the number of five and why it's considered safe? And what about households with more than five people? Would they also be required to sit separately?
There is really no magic number, right? You can set 2, you can set 5, you can set 8, 10, and you look around the world, you will find different countries setting different numbers. We think that 5 is a reasonable balance looking at the assessment of risk and the assessment of the situation that we are in today. 5 means that if an infection were to happen, then you limit that cluster to that group of 5 people who are together with that infected person at any one time. If you obviously allow 10 people, then potentially the cluster that can form will be larger, and because there are 10 people, each person may have another 10 contacts, then all that multiplies, right? So we think if you set it, on the other hand, very tightly, 2 people, then that may be a little bit too tight at the start, and it will be very conservative, but you will have potentially a lot of families who will not be able to even gather together. So the balance we struck was about 5, and indeed, if your household is more than 5, the rule of 5 will still apply. So 5 people max, and then if you have more than 5 who want to go out for dining in, they sit in different tables. The rule of 5 applies to, like I said, everyone, whether it's dining in or family visits, right? So family visits, subject to visiting a different household, people from different households will, in our thinking on phase 2, then it need not be limited to one household because already in phase 2, social interactions can happen in groups of 5. Right? So you can go and visit another household, but subject to the rule of 5 people maximum, right? That's on the visiting side. Whether it's social interactions in that small group of 5, dining in or family visits, that same rule of 5 people maximum would apply. On congregate prayers and congregational prayers, today, we already have said that in phase 1 opening, the places of worship can reopen for private prayers, subject to 5 people at a time, and then they can go in and within the same household, and then they can go in to have their own private devotions and private prayers. That's already allowed for under phase 1. So for phase 2, we potentially can expand, but whether or not we can have congregations gathering, as I said earlier, I highlighted that religious services is indeed one of the settings where we have had transmission happening, not just in Singapore, but also overseas. So in such a setting where there is an enclosed space, large groups of people, I think there are higher risk, and we will then have to work out with the different religious organizations, what are the appropriate precautions and safeguards. It may well require some additional rules about capacity, about the number of people, certainly safe distancing, and then everyone has to wear masks. We may have to look at the kinds of activities that are permitted as well, because it is quite well known that singing, for example, is an activity that brings about transmission very easily. So these are the kinds of discussions that we want to have with religious leaders, as well as other business owners in the areas where we think that they are of higher risk. And then we will work out the necessary safeguards and precautions before we can allow such activities to resume.